During a charity banquet, my son's fiancée pulled me into a private lounge and demanded I sign my dignity away. I was at the community center fixing a busted radiator in the gymnasium. Faded coveralls, grease on my knuckles. I heard her sharp, polished laugh echoing off the bleachers before I saw her. Confident, demanding, the kind of laugh that expects everyone to stop and listen. My son made the introductions. She extended 2 fingers to shake my hand, scanning the leaky pipes, the scuffed floors, my battered toolbox. I watched her mind file me away into a neat little box. Unimportant, pitiful. We had coffee later that week. She was articulate and driven, dominating the conversation with tales of her high-powered job directing a massive urban charity. I smiled and nodded, but beneath the charm I sensed a predatory hum, a cold calculation. I recognized it instantly, having spent 4 decades swimming with sharks before I sold my logistics firm and quietly retired to fix things in my old neighborhood. I kept my mouth shut about the buyout. My late brother always warned me about showing your hand. You don't broadcast your leverage, you just hold it. Over the following months, she subtly insulted me at every turn. Had I looked into food stamps? Did I know the city offered subsidized housing for seniors? She could pull some strings and get me a voucher. She spoke to me the way you speak to a stray dog you don't actually want to touch. I politely declined. She just sighed, taking my refusal as proof of my ignorance. Then my son called one afternoon, his voice tight. He mentioned she had a special opportunity for me. Those words set off every alarm in my head. She invited me to her organization's biggest fundraising banquet. I wore an old but clean suit. Right before the main speeches, she pulled me into a private VIP lounge. Her chairman of the board was waiting. Silk tie, expensive watch, a smile like a razor blade. He talked grandly about optics, about inspiring the wealthy elite, about giving a voice to the voiceless. Then he slid a thick contract across the mahogany table. It was a lifetime media waiver. They wanted to plaster my face on billboards and brochures as their new poster child for urban poverty. They needed a tragic figure, and she had volunteered me. In exchange for my dignity, they offered a flat stipend of $500. The chairman explained it slowly, emphasizing the money, clearly expecting me to weep with gratitude. I didn't touch the pen. Instead, I asked the chairman if he knew the origin of the anonymous Vanguard trust that provided their primary operating budget. He blinked, annoyed by the irrelevant question, and stated that their phantom donor's identity was classified. I stood up, reached into my jacket, and pulled out a heavy cream envelope. I placed it gently on top of their offensive contract. The chairman opened it. I watched the color drain from his face as if someone had opened a valve in his neck. Inside was a letter from my wealth manager detailing my philanthropic distributions for the fiscal year. The primary recipient was their charity. Below that, the specific tax ID matching the Vanguard Trust. And at the bottom, my signature authorizing the staggering $14 million endowment they survived on. He dropped the paper like it was on fire. My son's fiancée snatched it up. She read the letter. Then she looked up at me. It wasn't embarrassment. It was the devastating shock of a woman who thought she was standing on solid ground, only to realize she had stepped off a cliff hours ago. Her brain short-circuited as she tried to reconcile the grease-stained janitor with the multi-millionaire holding her entire career in his calloused hand. I picked up their waiver and tore it neatly in half. I told the chairman that my lawyers would be initiating a full audit of their ethical practices by Monday morning. I had tolerated her condescension for my son's sake, but exploiting vulnerable people for marketing points crossed a line I wouldn't ignore. The chairman practically fled the room to do damage control. She's frozen in her chair. As I turned to leave the lounge, she gave me one final look. It wasn't the pitying stare from the gymnasium. It was the terrified realization that she had been ruthlessly playing a game of chess against the man who owned the board.